Okay, let's talk about weapons. Category of weapons are legendary, epic, rare, uncommon, and common. Weapon classes are greatsword, dual blades, warhammer, polearm, or spears, and longsword. We're gonna focus in this video on longsword. This is a beginner's guide, and I do recommend the longsword for you as a beginner because longswords have immunity frames, meaning when you're using northern and southern technique, you are going to be immune to damage. Not 100%, but 99% of the times you cannot get hit.
Let's talk about Ascension. You will be able to earn Ascension points once you are level 50. Once you're level 50, you can earn Ascension points. Maximum Ascension level is 450. Anytime you level up, you'll get 1 Ascension point. My recommendation for spending the points goes like this. Vitality first, it will help you survive. Spirit second, then choose any other bonuses, and then might. Might is the last thing that you want. Now let's talk about a little bit about powers. Based on your level, 25, 50, 55, so on and so forth, you can choose one of the bonuses. You cannot have both from level 25, let's say. You need to choose one. Once you choose one, you can switch between the two of them quite easily. Bonuses, once you invest a point into a bonus, it cannot be resetted, but you will have enough points in order to fill everything up all the way down. Do not stress about it. If we go to skills, as you can see, you can clear a skill point, and you can also clear all skill points and then start reinvesting them.
Let's talk about skill points. This is my minimum recommendation for skill points or as a starter build. Weapon technique. Weapon technique is divided into two categories, northern technique and southern technique. Weapon timing. Weapon timing is basically a window frame that allows you to do a certain attack, and we're gonna talk about weapon technique a little bit later. Might. Might will provide a little bit of damage if you are spamming light attack or heavy attack. It will not help when you're doing a weapon technique. If you want more damage instead of investing points into might, I recommend investing points into rampage. Polarity. Polarity is basically a small boost in DPS if you can activate it, and we're gonna talk about this a little bit later. Soul Shatter or Soul Shatter build-up. It's basically another method to kill the enemy. In order to Soul Shatter an enemy, you can spam light attack or your northern technique in order to charge your Soul Shatter. To activate the Soul Shatter, you need to hit the enemy with your southern technique or with a heavy attack. Critical hit chance and critical hit damage. Note, in this game, there is no diminishing return for critical hit chance and critical hit damage. Meaning, if you have an item, or if you add skill points into these two categories, let's say 5, you will get 5. Vitality, self-explanatory, more defense. Arcane Fury. Arcane Fury is like your ultimate move. It can be used offensively and defensively. Some valorplates, when they activate Arcane Fury, they will get an increase in damage. But all valorplates will get 0 damage when Arcane Fury is active. Meaning, when you have Arcane Fury active, enemies, instead of hitting or chipping away your health, they will chip away your Arcane Fury. Resistances, again, self-explanatory. Spirit. Spirit, it's more damage when you are using a weapon technique. Already said about polarity, all stats self-explanatory. Finesse, why 2 points in finesse? Personal opinion is whenever you're knocked down, if you quickly press, in my case, X, you will be back on your feet and ready to fight. Okay, it's time to go to the training room. We have our minimum skill points. As you can see, one random item, which is in this case a longsword, because we're gonna practice with the longsword, and no auguments. Let's go. So up the stairs, door to the right. This is the training room. You can only fight if you enter the white circle. Training room is divided into, let's say, 2 small platforms. Platform on the right is where you spawn your enemies. If it has a white circle behind his feet, enemy is active. If you have a challenger edition, you will not have these many enemies. You'll probably have 2 of them. So I'm gonna spawn them all. Because in the training room, we cannot die. Right, okay, let's go back to the door. So this is the door that we entered. As I was saying, you can spawn enemies from the platform on the right. If you go on the platform in front of us, which is this one will refresh or automatically recharge your weapon technique. What we are going to practice now is Northern technique followed by a timing attack, and then Southern technique followed by a timing attack. In order to do that, I'm gonna say this again. Okay, let's go to skills. You need 5 points into weapon technique, because it's going to charge your weapon technique faster and it's going to give you a little bit more damage. And you need 5 points into weapon timing, which is very important. Now, what is weapon timing, and a little bit more details about it. Weapon timing is a time window frame where you can perform a certain attack after you attack with your main weapon. Now, what we are going to practice is level 5. Probably doesn't mean anything. Short version is, after you do a Northern technique or a Southern technique, in my case I need to press R1, I'm playing on PS5. If you're playing on PC or Xbox, the game is going to tell you what button you need to press in order to perform a timing attack. Why do I want to do a timing attack? Is because, first of all, you have one immunity frame doing a timing attack. Second of all, it will charge a little bit your weapon technique, and third, it will apply some soul shatter. Okay, let's see how it goes. So, Northern technique, timing attack, Southern technique, timing attack. Now, I cannot do another Northern technique or Southern technique because, as you can see on the right side where my weapon is, it's still charging. So if I want to do it, it's not gonna let me. So that's why we are using this platform right here to fastly recharge both of them. I'm gonna talk now about another skill, which is Soul Shatter. As you can see, this is a boss. The yellow bar is his health. Whenever I'm hitting the boss with my light attack, which is R1, a small white bar is starting to build up. If I'm using a Northern technique, it is going to build up faster. But I need to be in a circle, so this is how you do a Soul Shatter build up. In order to consume that Soul Shatter, you have two options. You either hit him with a heavy attack, which in my case is R2, or Sudden technique in order to consume that Soul Shatter. So first, let's hit him with a heavy attack. That was the attack. And now let's build up again, more Soul Shatter. Now I'm gonna hit him with a Sudden technique in order to deal that Soul Shatter damage. Okay, let's go back to skills again. And next we're gonna talk about Rampage and Polarity. I'm going to invest 1 point into Rampage. Like I said earlier, you want more damage, more points into Rampage. Same goes for Polarity. Now, in order to use Polarity, we will need to equip another weapon, a secondary weapon. I'm gonna go with a Warhammer. There we go. I'm gonna choose this one right here. Fancy. Okay. How do you know that you are in Rampage? As you can see on the right side, I have a long sword and a hammer. When I'm hitting the enemy, the yellow bar indicates that the Rampage is charging. The white bar on the hammer indicates Polarity is charging. So if you go hit the enemy over and over again, it's going to fill up. Right now I'm in Rampage, but it's draining. If I want to continue being Rampage, I need to start hitting the enemies. And I'm going to still be in Rampage. I don't know if I said this, but you cannot die in the training room. Now, the white bar from the hammer, it's full, meaning if I switch to my secondary weapon, I will be polarized. When you switch to your secondary weapon, you also do a Soul Shatter damage. That poor guy was dead. And now we can attack. My recommendation for a starter valorplate or hero will be Hinterclaw. I will assume that you finished the storyline, meaning Earth Realm, Water, Air, Fire. Fire is the DLC for this game. If you're playing the Challenger Edition, you do not have access to the storyline, so all these four here, they are locked. Now, the next logical step will be to go to the Spirit Realm, which in this case is not true, because Spirit Realm is one of the endgame contest. What you should do is go to the Dreamstones. You go all the way down and you start killing the bosses. Some of them will reward you 1 skill point. When you start a starter Dreamstone, you will have 3 options. 2 of which are blue. You don't need that. Just kill the one which is red or purple in order to get your skill point, and then you move to the next one until you unlock them all. Okay, now since that's out of the way, let's talk about how we're going to build, minimum stats requirement, and all of that. Now, Hinterclaw is a critical hit build. What that means is he's focusing on a lot of DPS as fast as possible. There are some hidden mechanics which you will not find in the codex, but we'll talk about them later on when we go to Auguments. Weapons. My recommendation is go with Seat. Seat doesn't drop as a legendary, it is purple or epic. It can be found anywhere. If you do not have Seat, the next best thing that you can have will be damage type, physical weapon, long swords. And I'm gonna go to blessings, luck. Your next bet will be Drazkul Legacy. Drops anywhere. Stats that you need to focus on are critical hit chance, critical hit damage, and damage to bleeding enemies. The next best thing that you could have will be Sword of Dominance with Blessing of Luck or Greater Blessing of Luck. Why are we focusing on the Blessing of Luck or Greater Blessing of Luck is because this is one of the hidden mechanics. Greater Blessing of Luck will give you 30% critical hit chance if you are Ascension level 125 and you have improved blessings, which is a lot. Secondary weapon that I recommend is a Warhammer. It has high DPS. Secondary stats that I recommend on the Warhammer are critical hit damage, weapon technique damage, damage to bleeding enemies, and for level 5, take critical hit chance. Charm. Charm is Lion Talisman. We're taking this one because of the weapon technique charge speed. This charm drops anywhere, but it is an epic. It drops like an epic or purple item. Stats that you should focus on are critical hit chance, critical hit damage, weapon technique damage, and weapon technique charge speed. Amulet. In the beginning, I do recommend this one because if you die, it doesn't have to be primary. It has to be like a regular one will do. Secondaries that I recommend is take critical hit chance at level 3 and critical hit damage at level 5. At level 5, this amulet is guaranteed to roll critical hit damage. This charm at level 5, it's guaranteed to roll critical hit chance. Ring. First recommendation will be Eye of the Dragon. Because of the primary, the second part of the primary, meaning weapon technique inflict alignments. What it does is whenever you do use a weapon technique, northern technique or southern technique, you will apply an alignment. In our case, because we have a physical damage, this will apply bleed on the enemies. Bleeding enemies will take more damage when you hit them again with your weapon technique or with a regular attack. Light attack, heavy attack, or charge heavy attack. If you do not have this ring in the beginning, you can search for this one. It has the same primary, the second part, meaning weapon technique inflict alignments. On this ring, you should focus on damage to bleeding enemies, physical damage, or weapon technique damage. Archon tier is the lifestone that I recommend. Primal one will be better. Secondary stats, critical hit damage, double that. Critical hit chance, and then at level 5, take again critical hit damage. In order to benefit from the primary and secondaries from the lifestone, you need to activate it, meaning you need to consume one of your 3 lifestones. For the banner, take Mesa Banderol. This one is a primal. In the beginning you don't need a primal one, a regular one will do. Again, this one drops as an epic or purple. Stats that you should focus on are critical hit damage, critical hit chance, weapon technique damage. Take critical hit damage all the way. In the beginning, for this build, I do recommend playing with the Void Shell in the middle. The way Void Shell works is if you crit, it will give you a certain amount of overhealth. That overhealth will keep you alive. It's your most desired stats, let's say. But in order for this Void Shell to work properly, you need to have a minimum of 50% critical hit chance, and with the help of the Greater Blessing of Luck or Blessing of Luck, you will improve that critical hit chance by 25-30%. And because the game doesn't have diminishing return, you will always crit. Another thing that I forgot to talk about is what resistances you should focus on. If you do not have 8 items in order to get your physical resistance to 50%, then make sure you have more overhealth gain, more than 50%. But 50% overhealth gain, it will do in the beginning. Now, back to our augments. I got lucky with this Void Shell and it rolled overhealth gain on it. If you cannot find it on the Void Shell, your next best thing that you should look for overhealth is Rift. This one rolls with fire damage, but it can also roll with overhealth gain. If you cannot find it here, you can also find it on the Glamour. Glamour can roll with overhealth gain, it can roll with physical resistance. Same for the Rift, it can roll with overhealth gain, physical resistance, and it is available for the Void Shield as well. It can roll with overhealth gain and physical resistance. This goes for the ring as well. Eye of the Dragon can roll with overhealth gain, physical resistance. Moving forward. Paradise is one of the augments that will help you charge your weapon technique faster. Secondary you want is damage to bleeding enemies. Now, why do we want damage to bleeding enemies? It is because damage to bleeding enemies is a hidden multiplier for one of the shards, and I'll come back to that. Next one is Carnage. What should you have here for a lot of damage will be damage to bleeding enemies, physical damage, and weapon technique damage. For the blue spots, we're gonna take damage to bleeding enemies if it is available. In this case, it wasn't, so the next best thing was physical damage. For the next blue spot, I did find one with damage to bleeding enemies, and I took it. The blue augments, this one, and the green augments, this one, and this one. As you can see, at level 5 they have might. You want might because you want to feed into this void shell. Let's talk about the shard. The shard that you want to unlock first will be this one. Applying a doom tag for 10 seconds whenever you hit an enemy with a timing attack. And you can do a timing attack if you have weapon timing level 5 after Northern Technique and Southern Technique. What the shard doesn't tell you is the hidden multiplier for this doom tag to explode with high damage is damage to bleeding enemies. The more damage to bleeding enemies you have, the more damage the doom tag will do. But you also need to charge it, so your window is 10 seconds. That's why we want to have a lot of critical hit chance and critical hit damage in order for our weapon technique to charge as fast as possible in order to feed this doom tag, let's say. I was saying in the beginning, this is a starter guide. A endgame build will be available in the description below. If I missed anything or you have had any questions, drop them in the comments down below. See ya.